I don't care where you turn today. It's wall-to-wall Trump coverage. Oh, they'll call it Super Tuesday coverage, but it really is wall-to-wall Donald Trump coverage. The Democrats, their race is pretty well settled. Bernie Sanders had his last hurrah in New Hampshire some time ago, and now they've moved on, and he'll just be doddering off to the retirement home sometime soon. And Hillary Clinton will be at the coronation this summer. But when it comes to the Republicans, this is getting to be perhaps an election year of historic proportions. And I'm going to share a couple of things with you this morning as to why all of this is shaping up this way. I do want to point out, too, Steve Millington will join us in about 20 minutes. Steve is going to talk as well about a filing day yesterday for the primary here in the state of Idaho. All three of our congressional delegation members who are actually running this year, Mike Crapo and our two members of the House of Representatives, Crapo is in the Senate, they all filed yesterday, but no one has yet filed to primary any of those three. Likely may not happen this year. And we'll talk a bit about some of that coming up, as well as some of the national race. We're 1 week away from primary day here in the state of Idaho for Republicans, as well as the Constitution Party, which is a much more conservative strain of, I guess, what you'd call Republicanism. And it very much adheres to the Constitution and really do a lot of old Christian principles in this company. And for a lot of people who call themselves conservatives who are angry with the Donald Trump, what you might call Donald Trump boom this year, they are likely going to be looking at something like the Constitution Party as a place to put all of their marbles before the year is out. It's 8 minutes after 8 o'clock. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Right now, 37. Looks like a very nice week ahead with, as we said yesterday, some days we'll see temperatures in the range of 60. Won't be getting much warmer than that, but still it'll be a welcome change from some of the colder weather we had early in the winter, late fall really, and then early into winter. This is a graph I found at Real Clear Politics today. Coverage of GOP candidates. Now, this is just from one network. This is from CNN, the Clinton News Network, as it's called by some people. This is from 1 week during the course of this campaign, late summer, from the 24th of August until the 4th of September. So maybe a couple of weeks we're looking at here. And it tells you just how much time was devoted to each Republican candidate who was running. And you probably could think, well, if my candidate didn't get much coverage, the public wouldn't know he was even out there. In that stretch of time, on CNN, during all of the primetime weekday shows, Donald Trump had 580 minutes of coverage. That would be nearly 80% of all of the coverage devoted to Republicans who were running for president as of August into September of last year. Nearly 77.57, I'll be accurate, 77.57%. So between 3/4 to 4/5 of all the coverage on CNN for those couple of weeks was for Donald Trump. Jeb Bush, who many people thought would be the guy who would be the nominee this year, a long time ago, he had only 88 minutes, just under 12% of all of the TV coverage on CNN during that stretch. Number 3, Ben Carson, 41 minutes. That was for just a little over 5% of the coverage. Number 4, Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin, 10 minutes, for a little more than 1%. Carly Fiorina, 8 minutes. Now here's what I find interesting. Marco Rubio got 6 minutes. Jim Gilmore got 6 minutes. Ted Cruz got 3 minutes of that coverage. Now, Jim Gilmore is long gone. Former governor of Virginia finally decided to toss in his threw the flag down and said, I'm over. I'm done. I'm cooked. He was not polling in any significant numbers after several primaries. But Rubio got less than 1% of the coverage, 0.8%. And yet he's still among the top three. This is what I find amazing about this. And Ted Cruz, who got the 3 minutes, that was just more than 1/3 of 1%. There was about 3.5 of 1%. 0.35. That's not even 35%. 0.35 of 1%. And yet these two guys are still the closest to Donald Trump, despite all of that difference in coverage, which may tell us something that there are still some people out there who simply don't trust Trump, despite all of the heavy coverage, and are going to go with one of the more traditional candidates, although Cruz is probably not, by many measures, a traditional candidate in the Republican fold. So we have all of this that we're looking at today, and this is going to be the day that really may make the entire contest. If Cruz wins Texas, There are 155 delegates available in Texas. It really depends on how much he takes out of that. Now, some of these states, I don't believe Texas is winner take all. I think that's proportional. But in some of these proportional states, if you win a certain percentage, if it's high enough, then they turn around and give you all of the delegates. But if Cruz makes a good, strong showing in his home state of Texas, then he likely survives for another week and can challenge in places like Idaho next week. But it's good probability that Marco Rubio's campaign may be over with as of 9 o'clock tonight Eastern Time, and that we'll just see him fading away in the next several days. He may still be well-funded, and some Republicans are talking now, well, if he goes, we're going to put Mitt Romney in there. We're going to get Romney. He still has time to file in some of the big states like California. Here's a question for you. Romney is the stopgap to Donald Trump. Romney is a two-time loser, 2008 and 2012. Didn't even get through the primaries in 2008. And in 2012, he appeared to be Casper Milquetoast when he was on the campaign trail. And every time he got roughed up by media, he bowed his head and said, sorry, I am sorry, I won't do that again. Where Donald Trump just simply says, go to hell. I mean, that's honestly how Trump deals with media in this situation. Somehow the Republican leadership in this country believes all they have to do is under Mitt Romney in a couple of states now, and that Romney will somehow say, aha, I'm here to vanquish Donald Trump, and it's going to happen. How delusional is that? Whatever marijuana they're smoking at the Republican National Committee must be a mighty powerful stuff, because I'll tell you what, it has definitely clouded their thinking and their judgment. Mitt Romney getting in is, if you think that George Pataki was a bad candidate, if you think that Jeb Bush was a bad candidate, if you think that Bobby Jindal was a bad candidate, Mitt Romney, come on. Is that the best these people can do at this point? See, these are some of the headlines, too. I want to share some of these with you this morning. These are some of the headlines that I accrued this morning before I went on air. Daily Caller. MSNBC host falls apart after discovering black Trump supporter. This was very funny. I happened to see this video that accompanied that, and they're talking on air. A liberal host with David Korn, who works for the communist magazine Mother Jones, and they go to a Trump rally where they found a black man who's going to be interviewed so they can get him to denounce Trump. And he sits there and he says, no, I'm a Trump supporter. And he says, and all this stuff about Trump being a racist and a Klansman and being pals with David Duke is all just media creation. So they go back to the set. And there's the MSDNC anchor. She's sitting there and she's saying, hemina, 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 hemina. Well, well, certainly not every black person supports Donald Trump. No, hemina, 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 hemina. Yeah, but apparently more do than the media would give credit. And then I've got this. Donald I's Super Tuesday landslide as Republicans beg voters to back away. That comes out of the Washington Times. That was the lead story in the Washington Times today. A new poll showing him approaching majority support among Republicans nationwide. Republican leaders, strategists, and candidates pleaded with voters to back away. Apparently, Mr. Trump must be radioactive in certain areas of the GOP. Now, I'm not an endorser of Donald Trump. I'm just telling you all of this stuff today because it's somewhat comical to see the GOP establishment, which has let down the voters for so long in its own party, thrash around and try to figure its way out of this mess. Here's another one. Robert W. Mary writing a column, Washington Times. Trump madness in the GOP. Rather than understand his popularity, the Republicans are only obsessed with how to stop him. That's a pretty good piece right there, too. It mentions that in South Carolina alone, 92% of Republicans who were surveyed, 92%, yes, 92% said they are angry with the GOP, and they voted for Donald Trump. Wesley Pruden, the retired editor of the Washington Times, panic on the eve of destruction. Marco Rubio's only appeal to the elites is that he's not Donald Trump, he writes, but after Tuesday night, that probably won't be enough. Stonewall Jackson said the secret of his remarkable military genius, his tactics, politically incorrect or not, was that I never take counsel of my fears. The Republican elites have lately taken counsel with theirs. This is the Wall Street Journal. The Donald and the Terminator. It's mentioning how Donald Trump and Arnold Schwarzenegger built their campaigns on their celebrity, but it mentions Schwarzenegger got stymied by the establishment in California, and it says, all right, go ahead and elect Trump, but he won't be able to get around Congress, and the Washington bureaucracy will slow him down. So they're warning, that, well, they'll slow everybody else down too now, won't they? 8:16, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Pat Buchanan. Is a new GOP being born? Buchanan, of course, one of those few people I think on the main stage when it comes to Republicans, well-known Republicans, who've been supporting Donald Trump for a very long time. He says the problem with many Republicans is they would rather lose to Clinton than win with Trump. And I'll get into some of these things a little later in the program when we get an opportunity, but I'm telling you right now, the volume of rhetoric and ink being spilled on Donald Trump right now is like nothing I've ever seen in American politics before. Here we go. This is from the Boston Herald, which is the conservative alternative to the Boston Globe in Massachusetts. And this is the headline. Amid Trump's surge, nearly 20,000 Massachusetts voters have quit the Democrat Party. Why are they doing that? Well, in Massachusetts, if you'd like to vote in the Republican Party primary, you either have to be a Republican or an independent. So if you leave, and the number is actually not quite 20,000, it's 16,300. But that's a big, big number of people in the state of Massachusetts. Why have they quit? Well, the elections commissioner, his name is William Galvin, he says the Trump phenomenon. That's simply all he says about this. So they're looking at a record turnout, perhaps double the last primary in Massachusetts. So why is this happening? People are asking this question. Why does his support continue to grow? The Washington Post today said that he is a very dangerous man. You're starting to hear all of this come out of media because he's not friendly to media, and he won't let media dictate what he says, what he does, or how he runs his campaign. And they don't like that. Suddenly they realize that they're not actually part of the process. They're just supposed to be reporting about it. And for a long time, they let the camel get its nose under the tent. Trump has gone over and stepped on that snout. Newsday. Donald Trump, Benito Mussolini, and Adolf Hitler. Is there any comparison? This from a columnist named William F.B. O'Reilly. No relation to the other Bill O'Reilly that I'm aware of. We'll get into that a little bit later in the program as well, because now all of the Nazi comparisons and the Benito Mussolini comparisons and the Klan comparisons are all coming out, all coming in many cases from Republicans now who are joining the media in piling on because of this. This is the Washington Post editorial. The title is Mr. Trump a Threat to Democracy? I don't know. Maybe the Washington Post is. How about this headline? This is over at New York Sun. Fears of Trump as fascist echo similar warnings against Ronald Reagan. That just goes on and on and on. And I'm telling you, we are in a period in American politics where if this is a revolution, we are seeing the reaction. The reactionaries are pushing back against what's going on. And it could well be that after tonight, I don't know, I would hate to say this, but the desperation among the establishment, the people who run the establishment in Washington and in New York, and perhaps to a lesser extent in Southern California, when you corner a beast, it can get very, very dangerous. And we've already had one conservative columnist working at the New York Times, kind of a traitorous place to work if you're a conservative in the first place, who's already joked on Twitter that someone should assassinate Donald Trump. Friends, if that were to happen, there would be riots in the streets, and we could be on the verge of a civil war in this country, because then the people who support that man, for whatever reasons they support him, would say, hey, they're never going to let us get a say in the game. It's 20 minutes after 8 o'clock. Bill Colley with you. Steve Millington on the way on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com.